Bishop Michael Curry's sermon was unscripted, 14 minutes when 6 had been expected, animated, American, evangelical. It disrupted the usual rhythm of a royal service. The press framed it as Meghan's touch, a bold act of modernity. But it wasn't hers. The invitation came from Charles. This wasn't her rewriting the monarchy. It was her benefiting from his calculated multicultural outreach. The gospel choir, the cellist, the bishop, each element felt disruptive to tradition, but all of it had been cleared and in some cases arranged by Charles. Meghan did not invent that vision. She walked into it and inherited the credit. And when the headlines said she had brought the monarchy into the modern age, no correction came. Because optics move faster than facts, and she knew how to ride the wave. Everyone remembers the sermon, the gospel choir, the headlines, modern, multicultural, groundbreaking. But what if the story the world applauded wasn't entirely true? What if Meghan didn't reshape the monarchy? She simply stood still while someone else made the changes. This wasn't rebellion, it was something more subtle. This was optics, reassigned, and no one reclaimed them after she walked out. In part 3 of The Wedding Was the Launch, we dissect how Meghan absorbed credit for what she didn't create, and how silence became her most powerful tool. From Bishop Curry's unscripted sermon to the viral press coverage, every visual was interpreted as her innovation, but most of it wasn't. It was Charles. It was tolerated, and Meghan, without correction, allowed the myth to settle around her like a veil. If you haven't watched parts 1 and 2, start there. Because what looked like a modern royal wedding was actually the beginning of a public rebrand. Subscribe to follow the full breakdown. Like and comment if you're starting to see the structure. This isn't about fabric or flair. This is about what happens when a global audience mistakes proximity for authorship and never asks who was actually behind the curtain. The media loved it. The gospel choir sang, "Stand by me." The press called it history. American audiences saw it as revolutionary. British outlets, more restrained, called it a departure. But inside the chapel, it wasn't radical. It was a managed disruption. Tolerated because it had been pre-approved. This wasn't rebellion, it was scripted contrast. And Meghan didn't push against it. She knew how to let it frame her. Meghan's wedding didn't modernize the monarchy. It created a split in perception. The public thought she had made history, but she hadn't changed the institution. She had reframed herself. She walked out of that chapel not as a royal, but as a global brand that looked like one. The difference mattered. She didn't modernize the monarchy. She used it to modernize her image. That's the trick of a controlled rollout. You don't break rules. You benefit from someone else's willingness to bend them. Meghan didn't fight for symbolism. She inhabited it. When Charles extended the space for cultural inclusion, she occupied it. And the world mistook that presence for authorship, but the optics weren't hers. She just understood how to claim them in the spotlight. Meghan's image as a disruptor was built on carefully avoiding direct conflict. She let others take the risk. Charles, Curry, the press. She stood calm, composed, in the center of it all. The world saw change happening around her. She let it. That's the power of controlled silence. Say nothing, absorb everything, appear gracious while others stretch the boundaries. And once the headlines ran, once CNN, The Guardian and Vogue declared it modern, progressive, groundbreaking, she never corrected the record. She didn't need to. She had already walked out with the narrative. The institution gave her the setting. The media gave her the credit. She didn't rewrite the monarchy, she just filmed her brand's introduction inside it. The moment the ceremony ended, the perception split was irreversible. To the monarchy, it was complete. A ceremony done, a job hosted. But to the world, Meghan had arrived, not as a duchess, as something newer, bigger, outside of lineage, above it even. The performance didn't close a chapter. It opened a brand. Charles remained quiet. The palace made no correction, because to them, the crown had absorbed the day's visuals. But they didn't realize that visuals, once released, can't be reclaimed. Meghan walked out of St. George's not just married, but reframed. The institution didn't elevate her. She used its ceremony to anchor her brand. The crown stayed silent. But silence isn't neutral. It allows myth to settle. In the public mind, Meghan became the woman who redefined the monarchy. The truth was quieter. She had simply been there when the monarchy allowed space for something new. The optics were never hers, but the audience believed they were. And Meghan, master of emotional image-making, understood that truth didn't need to be edited. It just needed to be framed. She didn't change the monarchy. She used it brilliantly. Part 4 follows the reception and how the seating chart revealed everything about the real hierarchy.